So Talofa, and welcome everyone. Welcome once again to another webinar hosted by the American Samoa Alliance Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. I'm Judy Matotia. I will be co-hosting today with Jennifer Tafiono, our Executive Director. And today we're going to be discussing our PowerPoint for today, or today's discussion is entitled Teen Dating Violence, What Every Advocate Should Know About Healthy Relationships. Teen Dating Violence, What Every Advocate Should Know About Healthy Relationships. So February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. And we wanted to discuss what every advocate should know and everyone should know about teen dating violence, healthy versus unhealthy relationships. So during this presentation, when we say relationship, we mean every relationship, not just intimate or romantic relationships from acquaintances to romances, having the potential to, with relationships, they have the potential to enrich our lives and add to our enjoyment of life. So, however, these same relationships can cause discomfort and sometimes even cause harm. So as advocates, it's important to understand what healthy relationships are versus unhealthy relationships in order to be able to provide support for victims of teen dating violence. Some of the terms that might come up throughout this discussion might include terms or words like intimate, and this means close, warm, maybe more than friends. Another term is gender. This refers to females, males, transgender. Dating means courting, seeing one another, or going out with someone. And there will be some other terms in there. So feel free to put in the chat box any questions you might have on any other terms that might be mentioned here that you're not sure about. Throughout this presentation, we will be asking some questions, and everyone is welcome to engage with their answers. And by doing so, please type in your answers into the chat box so that we can see them, and Jennifer will be able to share with us or include it in the discussion. Would you like to say hello, Jennifer?
Hi, everybody. I'm so grateful to be here with Judy. And I know that you're going to learn some great things as advocates. And so I'm excited.
Thank you. All right. So moving along. So before we move into today's discussion, we wanted to make sure that throughout this discussion, we will be able to discuss, hopefully we'll be able to discuss, and you hopefully might have an understanding what teen dating violence is broadly, who it happens to, and the different forms of teen dating violence, or TDV. We hope to share some statistics on teen dating violence, as well as some related local data, so that we can have that better understanding to where we are here locally. We will be talking about healthy relationships and consent, what it means, why it's important, its characteristics, and how consent works. The same for unhealthy relationships, what it is, the signs of an unhealthy relationship. Also, we'll be able to discuss how to help victims identify warning signs and be able to ask for help and share unavailable resources that we have here locally. All relationships exist on a spectrum from healthy to abusive, with unhealthy somewhere in the middle. So we're going to take a look at the relationship spectrum as well. And then talk about some ways that advocates can strengthen their approach when supporting victims of teen dating violence. All right. So our first question, we're going to start off with a question before we move into our discussion. Our first question is, what does teen dating violence look like to you? What does teen dating violence look like to you? So we want to hear from you what you think teen dating violence is, and what does it look like to you within your surroundings, your environment, in whatever community. So just identify to us what you think, you believe, you understand what teen dating violence is. I'm
sorry, Judy, to interrupt. I have my the video chat on the side here, but I see somebody, I have a response. I have a few responses actually in the chat box if you'd like.
Okay. I was gonna actually say I'll give you a minute, but I guess everyone's like,
I think you gave them enough time.
all right.
They're writing away. One says, when a teenager is in a relationship is physically abused. So that's what teen dating violence can look like.
Mm-hmm.
The next person wrote, when a partner most likely monitors their partner's phone or computer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's technology. And then the other one, the one says, when a partner verbally abuses their partner or their boyfriend or girlfriend, or the person that they're in the relationship with.
Wow. Oh, okay. Okay. That's pretty good. We'll see we'll see what we've found out about what teen dating violence is, and compare them to these answers that everyone was able to share. So, wow, what does teen dating violence look like to you? And thank you for sharing with us some of your answers for those of you that were able to share. Okay. So this is teen dating violence, and teen dating violence, broadly defined as a pattern of abuse or threat of abuse against teenage dating partners, as says there. Teen dating violence occurs across diverse groups and cultures. So, in other words, anywhere and everywhere and anyone. Although the dynamics of teen dating violence are similar to adult domestic violence, the forms and experience of teen dating violence, as well as the challenges in seeking and providing services, make the problem of teen dating violence unique. Teen dating violence occurs in different forms, including verbal, emotional, physical, sexual, and digital. I know someone had mentioned in their answers, monitoring the phones and that. Yeah. So that we've mentioned they're digital. So that's one of those answers that was included there. And the experience of teen dating violence may have both immediate, and long-term effects on young people. So like any kind of violence, it does have some long-term effect or impact on anyone, and in this case on the young people. Okay. So thank you for those of you who participated in that first question. Your answers were mentioned here in what teen dating violence is, and this is just a few. These are just a few pointers as to what teen dating violence is, but there's a whole lot about teen dating violence that isn't included here. So,
I just wanted to just broaden out that discussion on the challenges that they face, particularly culturally. When we come here to American Samoa, and if you're working with the victim that is a teenager, they most likely have not told their parents that they're in a relationship, or their parents are aware of it, but they don't want to accept it. And culturally, we just say that they're being cheeky or kaupaliki. And so trying to find services for a teen that may be in a violent relationship is challenging here. So I think and that definitely does make it much more unique here in our territory, because where would you go for the mental or the health or the medical health? Just identifying the type of professionals that they would need for teens. It's very different here in American Samoa. We know that we have minimal services, but then you add the teen part of it. We have very few pediatrics, that can handle teen dating, I would say. So that's something that's going to be a challenge for any of the advocates.
Yeah, that's true. The what Jennifer was talking about when you were some of those the dynamics of teen dating violence. And then how it says that some of them are similar to adult domestic violence. But there are also some of those challenges that we face when, like Jennifer had mentioned, trying to seek and provide the appropriate services for teenagers, because it's a, although it's similar to domestic violence, but it's different, unique in its own ways, where we very much have to be careful with children, and although it's teen dating violence, but we have to also understand that this is like most of them are underage, so a lot of this. And then you mentioned from looking from a cultural lens. I remember discussing this on radio the other day, how with teen dating violence, how a lot of us parents here in our culture as Samoans, we don't allow our children to date in high school, and that's why the children, when they do have those relationships, they hide it from their parents. So, and then that's an issue. That's another story.
Mhm.
Another story is when that relationship gets violent, gets abusive. And then when they find out that their child is in the hospital because of, why are they in the hospital? Because they were dating. Who said my child was dating? It's, there's the a lot of the secrets. Oh, so
Yeah, because our culture doesn't think that people, they don't allow they're not dating. They don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend because it's
in
frowned upon when you,
in our culture,
and
there's
so,
no such thing as teen
yeah,
dating, right? I mean, teen dating. In,
yeah,
in our
yeah.
culture, you're supposed to date when you're 50. Okay, thank you for that. All right, so know the numbers. We wanted to include some of this, some of the numbers here, the data, the statistics. Sorry, we wanted to include some of this because it's important. Although some of this is from the mainland, from their statistics from the U.S., but we are also a territory of the U.S. So 1 in 3 adolescents in the U.S. is a victim of physical, sexual, emotional, or verbal abuse from a dating partner. 1 in 3. 1 in 10 high school students have been purposefully hit, slapped, or physically hurt by a boyfriend or girlfriend. 1 in 3 teens who were in an abusive relationship never told anyone about the abuse. Girls and young women between the ages of 16 to 24 experience the highest rate of intimate partner violence. 80% of girls who have been physically abused in their relationship continue to date their partner or their abuser. And 1 in 5 girls who have been in a relationship said a boyfriend threatened violence if presented with a breakup. Now, the last 2 bullets there, those are some local data. And the first one there, experienced sexual dating violence in American Samoa. And this implies to being forced to do sexual things, counting such things as kissing, touching, or being physically forced or have sexual intercourse. They did not want to do by someone they were dating or going out with. And 1 or more times during the 12 months before this survey was taken in 2013. And it's saying here that 35.4% of those had experienced sexual dating violence. And then the one below it, 17.3%, same year, same survey, said that they experienced physical dating violence. Physical dating violence, which in one of those previous slides includes slapping, hitting, that we had mentioned.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we recognize that it does happen here in American Samoa. Obviously, the teenagers are responding and they are stating that this is happening here. So it's really important that as advocates, when you're working with teenagers, there is there's a highly likely chance that they have been in a physical or sexual, they've been abused physically or sexually, emotionally, or verbally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important that we recognize it does happen here. And then, the first point that you said, 1 in 3 adolescents in the US is a victim of physical sexual abuse. We do know that for women that are adult women, that in Pacific Islands, it's 2 out of 3 women that are that have domestic violence or abuse. So it's it's highly likely that our teen numbers would probably be the same, higher than what the 1 in 3, because in the US, it's 3 out of 5 women are usually abused. So the numbers would be really similar. So it follows the pattern of what we find in the US.
Yeah, and that that number, 2 out of 3 in the Pacific, two out of 3 women experience violence, um, and that's even worse. And I'm thinking one in 3 adolescents in the U.S. And when we talk about the U.S., that's a big number. The
Yeah.
population, it's a big number. Um, I don't think all of the Pacific covers the U.S. It's a really big number, and and we're small islands, uh,
Yeah.
and but 2 out of 3, that's a big number for
And
us.
when I think of that number, I always look at how many women are in the room with us, and then I count 2 out of 3, and then I start to identify. There are a lot of victims of violence that
Mhm,
are based on those numbers
mhm.
that are sitting there. So I would encourage any advocate, when you go into the room and you see women or women there, definitely do the 2 to 3 count, and then you can identify how many victims are in the room
Mhm,
and who would need your
mhm.
assistance.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So we're gonna move on. Okay.
So for this slide, for the impacts of teen dating violence, teens involved in dating violence are more likely to experience the following: injuries, where they harm themselves or are harmed by their partner. They may suffer from depression. Studies show that domestic violence victimization has a significant direct effect on depression. Depressive symptoms are associated with the DV, victimization, and aggression. For advocates who work with teen dating violence, they should address relationship power through their community and even in clinical interventions.
Mhm,
Suicidal thoughts and attempts. Studies show there is a history of physical teen dating violence, as we just talked about in the last slide. And it does have an association with suicidal behaviors and ideation. So it makes them think of committing suicide.
mm,
So coming from that youth risk behavior survey that we talked about in the last slide, where it did say that 22.7% of students said that they seriously considered suicide. Now, I cannot say for a fact that they thought of that because of their relationship, but the fact that that the youth are thinking of it,
mm,
most likely some of those, there's a high probability intersection of suicide and teenage relationships or unhealthy relationships cause youth to either attempt to commit suicide or commit suicide or have ideation. But
mm,
out of the 3,094 that were surveyed, um, you know, 1,500 of them, 1,553 of them felt that and they were all female, and they had thought of committing suicide. And 18.3%, or 1,527, were young men. So, like I said before, we cannot correlate that this is from teen dating violence, but it's important to know that teens have considered attempting suicide,
yeah.
and teen dating violence can be a factor.
Mhm, mhm,
The last part is that poor educational outcomes. It's important to note that TDV can cause poor health, mental health. It can lower academic achievement and increased truancy dropout.
Yes.
Now, for drug and alcohol use, similar to what's found in domestic violence, physical dating violence can happen more often when alcohol and hard drug use is a factor. But
Mhm.
it's important to know that alcohol and drug usage are not the reason for abuse. That's what we believe. Studies show there's more frequency of abuse when there's heavy episodic drinking or problem of using drugs and or alcohol, but they can't say that that's the reason why they do it.
Hmm.
And lastly, we want to make sure that our advocates are aware that teen dating violence can interfere with developmental tasks of adolescents. It can distort perceptions of what is normal and provide an inappropriate guide for future use.
Hmm. Thank you. That was a lot. That was a lot on the impacts of of teen dating violence. But it just brings to mind what we're facing right now locally. You know, the issue
Yeah.
on suicide. A lot of the teens that have gone through this, and I also understand that there's still some of them that are out there that are going through these, that have had suicidal thoughts and maybe even have attempted. Um, so this is really important that we understand these impacts of teen dating violence can be very extreme and dangerous. Okay, so we've come to question number 2, and like our first question number 2, please, and feel free to engage by including your answer into our chat box, and Jennifer will be able to share with us. So question number 2 is, what does a healthy relationship look like to you? What does a healthy relationship look like to you? Again, whatever you believe, understand, know what a healthy relationship looks like to you in whatever environment, your surroundings that you're in. So, question again: what does a healthy relationship look like to you? We'll give you a minute. We'll give everyone a minute before those answers start coming in.
I've got one.
Okay.
It says where there's healthy communication and no verbal abuse.
Where there's healthy communication and no verbal abuse. All right. That's pretty good.
Yeah. The other one is writing where people are not afraid to be themselves.
Well, people are not afraid to be themselves. Okay. All right. I like that one.
Yeah.
Able to express themselves. Any other answer?
There's somebody right. Yeah, I'll take this last one. Where they're not isolated from family or friends. Or they're not separated from family or friends.
Okay.
Still
They're
see
not-
that.
All right. Like you're still allowed to be part of whatever other groups, like still be able to go out and hang out with your own friends, as well as see family members. And okay, all right, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So we don't have any other answer, huh? Okay. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for participating in that. So let's move on. Okay, so we've come to, what is a healthy relationship? What is a healthy relationship?
Mm.
All right, so we've got a few pointers here. And so dating is a important part of human development, and helping many teens feel normal, or feel that it's normal. Knowing this, how can we advocates help ensure the young people we serve are informed about healthy relationships when they choose to start dating? So what is a healthy relationship? Healthy relationships allow both partners to feel supported and connected with, connected, but still feel independent. Um, Communication and boundaries. Somebody mentioned boundaries, as well as communication. Somebody had mentioned communication and boundaries. Those are the two major components of a healthy relationship. Communication allows you and your partner to have a deep understanding of each other, and allows you to connect. In a healthy relationship with good communication, both partners respect each other. Um, they speak openly about thoughts and feelings, feel heard, listen and compromise, no criticism, do the things they like, celebrate accomplishments and successes. This is communications and um, how to set boundaries. Whether you're casually, for example, whether you're casually having sex, just started dating, or are in a committed relationship, setting and respecting boundaries is essential to any and in every relationship. It's important that partners feel comfortable expressing their wants, their goals, their fears, their limits, and everyone's boundaries are honored. That means everyone feels comfortable communicating their needs without fear, or what another person will do in response. If your partner tries to minimize your needs or violates the boundaries you established, then they aren't showing you the respect and trustworthiness that one deserves. And so your boundaries are yours to build: emotional boundaries, physical boundaries, digital boundaries, conflict resolutions, etc. And ultimately, the two people in the relationship decide um, what is healthy for them and what is not. And it doesn't if something doesn't feel right, you should have the freedom to voice your concerns to your partner. And what makes a healthy relationship is a strong dating relationship in is based on equality and respect. Those are That's another um, important part of healthy relationships, is that it's based on equality and respect, not power and control. Think about how you treat and what and want to be treated by someone you care about. Was there anything you wanted to add on to this, Jennifer?
Yeah, I always think it's really important that we add a cultural lens to this.
Mm-hmm.
So, just between you and I think for advocates, it's an additional thing that's really important to ask a teenager is, does your family know that you're in a relationship? All right. Because I know that when families support them, particularly for families, when they support that their child is dating someone and they know, then they're welcome to come to the house. They're welcome to be a part of the family activities. And so when they are part of that, they then become you can see what the relationship, what's going on in the relationship. You can really see if the partner or is is has the best interests of the teenager, and identify if they're communicating well and if there are boundaries. I think it's really important that we, as advocates, we ask that question as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Judy?
No. I totally agree. I totally agree with you. How from a cultural lens, with us here, it's um, we don't it's like we don't allow that to happen. It's I think what we believe is that a healthy relationship is no relationship, hence banning our kids from, yeah. That's their idea of healthy relationship, is you won't have a relationship, you can't. But there are those, we see people now, we see families now, we see parents now, like you mentioned, when they take in their children's friends, or partners, or boyfriend, girlfriend, and then they start uh, making them part of their family,
Hmm.
and that's something new. And I'm not saying new like this year or the past couple of years. This is something like, um, maybe it's might be common today, but it wasn't really common um, during my time when I was a teenager. Um, we were still hiding secrets from our parents, like, you dare not be caught on the phone talking to a boy, um,
Yeah.
so, and we didn't have cell phones anyway, um, so so we had to meet. So it's like, there were no phones, no messages, so you had to like go out. It was more, you were living on the edge if you were dating. But I I totally agree with you with how it is today, and I think with everything going on, especially like with our community, what we're facing with sorry, with suicide, people, adults, parents have really taken into mind accepting the youth or teenagers, like giving them that opportunity to not be so quick to shut them down, or even when it comes to relationships, teen dating, teen dating, you know, um, I don't know if it's, if because of that they're going to that extent of allowing their children um, to have these relationships even when they're in high school, or like um, in elementary, because uh, there are some that even start dating when they're eighth graders. Eighth
Yes.
graders. I never believed that, but until I saw it, so um, so yeah, that's totally true. So, all right. Okay. So moving on to the next one.
Okay. Um, so this is my slide. And I'm just
Is it slide 9?
so
Okay.
no. Why are healthy relationships important? Because as humans, it's imperative that we enter into relationships with others, right? No
Hmm.
person stands alone. And this is extremely important. But when we're in good relationships, we strengthen our understanding of who we are as individuals and as a couple. And based off of the conversation that Judy and I just had, when your family is also involved in knowing who your partner is and who you're dating, it really strengthens the couple, and the acceptance is huge. And then when you're in a healthy relationship, you can develop a really strong sense of self, your ability to respect yourself and your body, and having strong knowledge of your values. It can increase your ability to enter into healthy relationships with other individuals. So with healthy relationships, we begin to develop as a person, we grow emotionally and learn how to communicate extremely well with individuals.
Mm,
But more importantly, we can maintain meaningful bonds with people.
mm,
We also want to remind teens that we work with that being in a good relationship, it's fun. It feels good. It looks good.
mm.
It definitely makes us feel good, and it makes us feel good about spending time with other people. And we can be ourselves, and that also makes us fun to be around. So it's really important that as you're talking to youth about healthy relationships, all these factors are critical discussions to have with them.
Yeah. That's one thing as a teen, as a Samoan teen. Um, um, I think it's like part of their nature is to just um, gravitate towards each other. Like for instance, in the slide where it's important to have these healthy relationships because it's almost like it's part of us. You rarely see a teenager here in Samoa where they're on their on their own. Like they don't have friends or anything. You know, our teenagers here locally, they're all like in groups. They have so many friends. Rarely do you see a kid that doesn't have friends here, whereas that's really common overseas, where children are being bullied because a lot of them are on their own. They're isolated, they don't have that many friends or don't have any friends at all. Whereas here, I think it's in our nature as people we call it famasangi. You know, when we go to school the first day, all of a sudden we're friends. You went to school with no friends, and you come back and you're you're you have like a whole bunch of friends.
You have an entourage.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Um, so
Gross.
yeah, so that's something that 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 I think we have here, as Samoan teenagers. We have these relationships, you know, with as we have friends, you know. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the pieces on this slide, it's really important for advocates because they can use a lot of these pointers as to ask the teenager, hey, are you in a healthy relationship? And why is it important?
Hmm.
Asking them, do you know what you want? Because you got to know yourself to understand what type of behavior do I want in this person, what type of characteristics do I want for a partner, and then the other thing is, would you take them home?
Hmm.
Right? For It's an important question
Hmm.
because
Yeah, and it's the same for yeah, and it's I believe it's also the same in all these relationships, whether
yes,
it's your boyfriend or girlfriend, and or your friend, like my,
yes,
you know, like boys and boys or girls with girls. It's the same thing because our friends also have this have a big effect, big impact on us as hence they influence us, and our parents understand that when we hang out with the wrong people, you know, we
yeah,
most likely will go down the wrong way, you know.
yeah,
So as we're told when we're growing up, so they're always telling us to hang out with the right people, look for good friends. You know, who's this
yeah,
friend of yours? So
yeah.
it goes the same. It goes both ways, or in any relationship anyone has. So.
I mean, because when you ask these teenagers, they'll always say, "Oh no, he's my friend." You'll ask, "Is that your boyfriend?"
Hmm.
"Oh, friend." Well, and you don't hear them saying a sweetheart,
Yep.
or
Yep.
they don't use the word. What were those words we saw? Manamea, or
Hmm.
you know,
Baanga.
you don't hear that vocabulary. So
Hmm.
they definitely, for our cultural lens, we see them as friends,
Hmm.
and even the definition of friends, it can be somebody that you see me with. My family knows their name, but we're not boyfriend girlfriend. We're just kicking it.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
important for kids to
Yeah.
see that on a.
And yes, and today, going back to what you're saying just now, and today that is so common now that girls have a lot of guy friends, guys have a lot of girlfriends, you know,
Yes,
and but they're not boyfriend girlfriend, you know, they're not dating. Whereas back then, you have a guy friend, your mother will be like, you know, who is he? You know, why is he here? You know, it's to them, it's like there isn't any other kind of relationship that you would have with the opposite sex other than an intimate relationship or
yeah,
that you're dating. But that's so common, you know, today is that we're friends with everyone and anyone, you know, and it doesn't have to be that you're dating or it's an intimate that kind of you have that kind of intimacy. So, all right, okay, all right. So in this slide here, we're talking about the qualities of a healthy relationship. A healthy relationship should bring more happiness than strength into our lives. Um, so every relationship will have stress at times, but we want to prevent prolonged mental stress on either member of the relationship. Here are some characteristics or qualities that may be present in your healthy relationship. Mutual respect means that each person values who the other is and understands the other person's boundaries. Trust, when partners should place trust in each other and give each other the benefit of the doubt. There's honesty. Honesty builds trust and in each other, and give each other the benefit of, where are we? Honesty. Yes. Honesty builds trust and strengthens the relationship. And then compromise. In a dating relationship, each partner doesn't always get his or her way. Each should acknowledge different points of view and be willing to give and take. So that's compromise. Individuality. Neither partner should have to compromise who he or she is, and his or her identity should not be based on a partner's. Each should continue seeing his or her friends and doing the things he or she loves. Each should be supportive of his or her partner wanting to pursue new hobbies or making new friends. And then there's good communication. As we've said before, each partner should speak honestly and openly to avoid miscommunication. If one person needs to sort out his or her feelings first, the other partner should respect those wishes and wait until he or she is ready to talk. And then there's anger control. We all get angry, but how we express it can affect our relationship with others. Um, Anger can be handled in healthy ways, such as taking a deep breath or counting to 10 or talking it out. Fighting fair. Everyone argues at some point, but those who are fair stick to the subject and avoid insults are more likely to come up with a positive solution or a possible solution. Partners should take a short break away from each other if the discussion gets too heated. And then there's problem solving. Dating partners can learn to solve problems and identify new solutions by breaking a problem into small parts or by talking through the situation. Understanding. Each partner should take time to understand what the other might be feeling. Self-confidence. When dating partners have confidence in themselves, it can help their relationship with others. It shows that they can calm and it shows that they are calm and comfortable enough to allow others to express their opinions without forcing their own opinions onto them. Being a role model by embodying what respect means. Partners can inspire each other, friends, and family to also behave in a respectful way. And then, last but not the least, healthy sexual relationship. Dating partners engage in a sexual relationship that both are comfortable with, and neither partner feels pressured to force to engage in sexual activities that is outside his or her comfort zone or without consent. So those are just some of the qualities of a healthy relationship that you might be experiencing in hopefully we're all experiencing in whatever relationships we have. Um,
I like the comments that you brought up, Judy. I think it's really important for advocates that might not know or might not work with a teenager or might not know what to say because sometimes we have difficulty with vocabulary.
yes.
But like asking them for anger control, how, you know, asking the teenager, hey, we all get angry, but how does your partner express it? You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
is it in a healthy way? Do we, is it in a way that we can sit and dialogue or we can agree to step away, or is it abusive? And
Hmm.
then the fact of the healthy sexual relationship, that's really important. That's something that's a little touchy, but this can give the advocates a way to start to engage in the conversation with the teenagers. You definitely have to ask them, if you're having sexual relationships, then is it healthy? Are you comfortable with it? Are you comfortable having sex? If you are, and if not, what can we do to help you so that you feel safe, right?
Hmm.
You're not feeling pressured or not feeling forced to engage. You can say no and you can say it safely. So this is great. I like these tips.
Mm. Okay. All right. Moving on to the next one.
So
Okay.
this slide here is the equality wheel, and it's a model that's used to help explain the dynamics of a healthy relationship. You can use it in all forms of relationships. Yeah, I mean, you can use it with your friends, you can use it with dating partners, you can use it with your intimate partners, you can use it with life partners or family members. Each component of the wheel supports and reinforces the other, with equality always in the center. So the center of the wheel, equality, is what is needed for any healthy relationship. So the spokes of the wheel, or the pieces of the pie, um, some of them, for example, like trust, which Judy talked about talked about in the last slide. But the trust would be something that you could ask your victim is, do you trust your life partner more than you trust somebody that you just met off the street? And if you say no, well, then you can have that discussion of, what does equality look like? Why is there no trust? What is it that there is? And then support, where you support each other and you encourage each other's goals, activities, and personal growth. And asking the team, well, is that part of your relationship? Is there support where they're encouraging you to go and do let's say, for instance, if you needed to go do sports, you played soccer as a teenager and you want to go out, and is your partner supportive of that? Or is your partner telling you, no, you have to stay here with me all the time, you can't go out, you stay home? Where's the equality? That's the discussion that you have to have. And shared responsibilities, another piece of the pie. Reminding, when we work with our victims, we remind them that in a relationship with equality, we share the responsibility for maintaining a relationship. That could be that they're both part of the decision making. Not just one person decides on all the important factors of the relationship. They both decide together. And the last one I'll talk about is honesty and accountability. Being open and honest, it's needed for any relationship, particularly when we focus on intentions, feelings, or desires. Accountability, or being responsible for your own actions, it's really important that you talk to others to understand how your actions affect them, or ask the teenager, how is your partner's actions affecting them, to understand what accountability is. But the last piece of this is the band that's around it, the black band that says nonviolence. The band, which is the circle, is nonviolence. This is to remind us that there is no place for violent acts or behaviors in a healthy relationship. So examples of unhealthy activities or responses is when there's violent acts that can be yelling, name calling, throwing things, unwanted touching, and pushing. So those are those things that would encompass or define the nonviolence that you don't want in your relationships. But that's the equality wheel.
So these are all nonviolent ways to interact with a partner.
Correct.
And there's so many other. I just wanted to mention. There are so many. If you look at the reference that we have there, the source, this is from the Duluth model, and there's so many other wheels. When you look them up, when you go out there and you're if you're researching these wheels, but they're basically all the same. They're basically all the same. This is this wheel of equality, and it's also named the healthy relationship wheel. So we wanted to bring this in to include that. Thank you for that information, Jennifer. So understanding consent. All right. Is this my slide? Is this slide 12? I think this is my slide, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So talking about consent, as we mentioned in the beginning, consent is an important part of a healthy relationship. And we don't talk about consent enough, even though it's the cornerstone of every interaction between partners, most people are still a little unsure about what consent means, and what it does and what it doesn't. Sorry. Consent is often used in the context of physical or sexual activity with a partner, and but it has more to do with the decision making behind your actions than the actions themselves. Put simply, consent is an ongoing mutual agreement between partners about what they want to experience. You may have heard the phrase no means no. In the context of consent, that's true, but a statement like that doesn't provide a complete picture of the complexities that go into mutual decision making and respect in a relationship. Um, no means no, and puts the responsibility on one person to resist or accept an activity, instead of framing consent as a reactive measure in response to a partner's actions. Think of consent as a proactive expression of what partners are comfortable with and want to do together. What partners want to do together. When one agrees out of fear, then that's not consent. When one says yes or um, or gives consent because of fear, because they're afraid, that's not consent. And consent is more than yes or no. It's about asking, listening, and respecting the wishes of a partner. That's what consent is. If you look at the reference there with reference consent is key webinar, if you go to our website, www.asalliance.co, we will have our some of those webinars up there, or even on our YouTube page or our YouTube channel. Sorry, it should have our webinar there, or one of our curriculums called Consent is Key, which was something that was done last year. And this goes into, it breaks down everything about consent, the myths on consent, everything on understanding what consent is. But here we've just included a few pointers just so that we can discuss or give you an idea of what consent is. Okay, so we've come to question number 3. Question number 3. Again, please put your answers into our chat box, and Jennifer will be able to share those answers. Question number 3 says, what does an unhealthy relationship look like to you? I know the previous question, number 2, was what does a healthy relationship look like to you? So this is the opposite. What does an unhealthy relationship look like to you? So we'll give you a minute to include your answers in there into our chat box, if you will. What does an unhealthy relationship look like to you? Again, what you think, what you believe, what you understand an unhealthy relationship is within your surroundings, your environment, and whatever community you're part of. So what does an unhealthy relationship look like to you within those surroundings?
I have 2 that have just responded.
Okay, let's hear it.
The first one says, where you're constantly afraid that you will be physically abused for any actions, like talking to friends, if I'm using my phone, if I'm doing what I want to do.
Okay. Constantly in fear, right? Constantly afraid.
Yeah, where they're constantly afraid that they'll be abused physically. I say
All
that,
right.
physically abused for
Yeah.
any actions.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. That was a good answer. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Anything else?
Yeah, the last one is no consent for sexual relationship. What I will allow to happen with my body.
That's pretty good, considering we just talked
Yeah,
about.
you just talked about, because that's probably
consent.
okay.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. What does an unhealthy relationship look like to you? One, the two answers we got was one, being afraid of the consequences of anything you might do within this relationship. Two
Mhm.
is um, an unhealthy relationship is when there's no consent. Uh, there's no consent of within the relationship. Thank you so much for those answers. Those were awesome answers. Let's move on. Okay, so here we have what is an unhealthy relationship. So we are going to talk about what an unhealthy relationship is, and I bet it's going to include those two answers that we
Mm,
got. An
yeah.
unhealthy relationship is a relationship where one or more of the people involved exhibit behaviors that are not healthy and are not founded in mutual respect for other people or the other person. Um, an unhealthy relationship is not necessarily an abusive relationship, but it can be. There are many types of relationships, and all relationships have good days and bad days. However, the ones we want to avoid are those that make us feel bad about ourselves. Um, like we have to do what the other person says, or make us feel afraid or in danger. Um, and whereas a healthy relationship never includes teasing or bullying, power struggles, angry outbursts, withholding love, coercion or peer pressure, unreasonable demands, uh, humiliation. A very unhealthy relationship um, might include relationship violence. It is a pattern of abuse that happens between people in any type of relationship, and may include unwanted sexual contact, verbal and or emotional abuse. And abuse is not just physical. Um, it can also be financial,
Mhm.
psychological, and social, um, cyber or digital. Um, and nobody deserves abuse. It doesn't matter what the person's appearance, attitude, or actions are. There's just no excuse for abuse. And in addition, being in an unhealthy relationship means that things are more likely to just happen and become out of control. They say that what unhealthy relationships are based upon power and control, and this can include and exhibits behaviors such as what was said before: coercion, threats, intimidation, put downs, isolation. So even though we may personally not be suffering from relationship violence, chances are that we have known someone or will know someone who is. And the best thing we can do as responsible individuals and advocates is to educate ourselves on the subject of domestic violence, and be able to support when one person in a relationship is repeatedly scares or hurts or puts down the other person. That's abuse. Remember, abuse is much more than slapping or grabbing someone, even in teen dating. um, was there anything you wanted to add on here, Jennifer, on unhealthy relationship? I know that was a lot.
Yeah, no, no, it's great. I think it's really, really important that it comes back to equality and, you know, what is the power and control within, how is the power provided within the relationship? Is it even? Are we both able to make the decision, or is one person making all the decisions? And it goes back to reminding advocates that, when these abusers, and this is teen dating, it happens when abusers start when they're small, and it's a total mindset. It's a mindset that they have power and control over their partner. Because there are a lot of partnerships where, sometimes you don't feel that you have mutual respect. Like maybe one day he's not listening to you and you feel, oh, well, he's disrespecting me, but
Mm-hmm.
you're able to work it out. But in a power and control one, the abuser
Mm-hmm.
tends really believes I'm in control, and anything that you think of, any way that you feel, is not as important as how I feel. And so there's the quality within the relationship is extremely minimal. So it's really important for advocates that we recognize that the equality ask, making sure that the victim can identify or understand that if there's equality within the relationship, but also to remind the victim that these behaviors for an abuser starts young, just like what we learned about the continuum, right? It starts when they're extremely young, and it could be from them hitting or being a abusive in their verbiage, right? Talking abusive, using abusive language. And then it starts to becoming isolation. Then it becomes really putting them down, making them depressed, having that power and control, making them, you're not pretty, nobody wants you, the only person who's looking at you is me. And then it continues on to hitting. And so it doesn't start when you can see a lot of these behaviors start when they're young, and there's this continuum that just keeps building and building. And that's when you can identify an actual abuser that doesn't understand what equality is and doesn't believe in it. So those are those patterns that are really important for advocates to know, so that this way, when they're working with their victims, they can really help to guide them to those kinds of conversations.
Yep, yep. Thank you for that. Thank you for adding on to that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so um, so we wanted to include here one of the recent cases of teen dating, and this was a local incident. This was something that happened in November 2018, where and this was the case of an a local boxer, and he was arrested for assaulting his girlfriend, who was a student at one of the high schools, local high schools. So the details of, I'll try to quickly go over the details of this incident, is that it was an 18-year-old male, and he was charged for allegedly forcing a 17-year-old girl, or his girlfriend at that time, into a vehicle and holding her against her will inside while he assaulted her. Um, the name of the name of the boxer, or the perpetrator here, was Tango, was his last name. He was it says here he was an elite boxer, and so he won medals for American Samoan boxing. And so he faced charges of felonious restraint, attempted kidnapping, third degree assault, and endangering the welfare of a child. So according to a statement on this case, the victim had given that the victim had given police shortly after she was dropped off by her mother at school that morning. The defendant had come around on campus. Tango had come around on campus, grabbed her by the hand, and dragged her inside a vehicle driven by another male. The victim said she tried to fight him off, but he was too strong. At one point, carried her and threw her inside the vehicle. Um, the victim said that Tango had choked her neck and shook her, then grabbed the front of her shirt and forcibly held her down inside the vehicle. The students of this high school who saw what was happening, tried to help her but couldn't because the car was locked from inside. And they then started throwing rocks at the vehicle, and she was able to reach for the lock and, I guess, escape the vehicle from inside the vehicle. Another student, a friend of the victim, collaborated her story to the police, and the friend also had said that this is not the first time. That was not the first time that this had happened. They had mentioned that whenever the victim broke off her relationship with the boxer, he would beat her up, leaving bruises on her body. Um, so one of the members of the high school faculty reported the incident to the police, and investigating officers had noticed abrasions, redness, and swelling on the girl's neck, arms, shoulders, and chest area, and her clothing were all torn from this incident. So this is one of the local incidents on teen dating violence where two teens were involved, and it was out and open at a high school. Um, I I'm sure I'm sure the victim was grateful that the high school students knew that what was happening wasn't right, and this was one incident where the where nobody had applied the whole mind your own business. So for the kids to be had stolen the car, that enabled her to get out. So we do. There are some. We only mentioned this one case here. Nevertheless, there are so many domestic violence cases here in the territory where they're young couples. They're married. They're not dating, but they're married. But they're young couples, and um, they go through this. Like last year, we had a case. We had one case of one of the mothers that passed away. Young mother, very young mother, and she was in. I believe she was in her early 20s, and her husband had beaten her out brutally to the point where she had passed away. And he beat her up, and then he he gasolined her, and according to the reports, he tried to burn her, and um, that was part of why she didn't make it. So, so those are some of the incidents that happen that we do have here in the territory. For those of you who think that this doesn't happen here, and like I said, this is just one case here that we're talking about that was reported, but like any other case of violence, so many of these cases go unreported, um, uh, or if not, it's still happening. Like we said in one of our numbers, one of the statistics say that so many of these girls that are in these relationships go back 80%. 80% of the girls that are in these violent relationships return to the abuser, continue that relationship. So, was
I,
there anything you wanted to add on here, Jennifer?
yeah, I definitely want to say that they're in that, just in that story alone, you could see so many instances of the inequality in that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Comes onto her school property, is
Mm-hmm.
not part of the school. He grabs her by the hand and he drags her into this vehicle. And he, he's a boxer and he knows how to fight her off. And I'm sure he probably hit her like a boxer. And then so this idea of shared responsibility or the support that you would find in that wheel, you
Mm-hmm.
definitely find instances where it's not met in this relationship or in this type of relationship. So it's really important that as advocates, as we talk to our youth, that we get them to see a lot of these points, that there must be equality in the relationship for it to be healthy. And that if no, the last part of this is them saying he's done this before. Or when she tried to break it off, he continued to beat her up. So definitely there's that pattern that we were talking about, that continuum. It's his pattern that he's been doing, and he will most likely continue to do it until he starts to understand that there needs to be equality in the relationship, that what you're feeling is as the power,
Mm,
not the appropriate way. And it really important that we have to have those dialogues with our youth.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. All
So,
right.
signs of an unhealthy relationship. One of them is control. And that's when one dating partner makes all the decisions and tells the other what to do, what to wear, or who to spend time with. He or she is unreasonably jealous and or tries to isolate the other partner from his or her family. Hostility is when a dating partner picks a fight with their partner or antagonizes the other dating partner. It can lead to one dating partner changing his or her behavior in order to avoid upsetting the other. We can see that a lot where they're saying, "Oh, I don't want to make them mad, so I'll just go along with it." Dishonesty, where the partner lies or keeps information from the other. One
Mm,
dating partner steals from the other. That's dishonesty. Disrespect, the signs of an unhealthy relationship is when one dating partner makes fun of the opinions and interests of the other partner or destroys something that belongs to the partner. They really take something that's important to this person and they strip them of it. dependence,
Mm.
or one dating partner feels that he or she cannot live without the other. They become so codependent, right? He or she may threaten to do something drastic if the relationship ends. So they start to threaten them with suicide, or they talk about ideations of suicide where I'm thinking about it. And so that becomes a power and control as well. Intimidation, where a dating partner tries to control aspects of the other person's life by making the partner fearful or timid. They may attempt to keep his or her partner from friends and family, or just tell them, I'm going to beat you up if you break up with me, similar to what happened in that actual story there. Physical violence, where one partner uses force to get his or her way, such as hitting, slapping, grabbing, shoving, any type of physical violence of hitting, pulling their hair. Um, and then the last one is sexual violence, or one dating partner pressures or forces the other into sexual activity against his or her will or without consent. So those are definitely signs of an unhealthy relationship. And as advocates, you can ask those questions to your teenage victim to see if any of those are true, and then start to have that dialogue of what an unhealthy relationship is. Because some teenagers may feel, no, he wants to make sure that I'm safe, so he monitors everywhere I go. Or he beat me up because I kept talking back to him, this or her. They start to accept it as normal behavior when it's not, and the dialogue needs to be had with them, with the victim, to help them to understand that this is not a healthy relationship.
Mhm. So if you're experiencing any of these, then um, these are all red flags.
Yes.
These are all red flags in any relationship. And from a cultural perspective, um, what is something that's very popular here, common in one of our teenagers, I mean, in our teens these days. Um, I shouldn't say these days, it's something that we've been seeing, is that when teens, they have this tendency to play rough, to play rough with each other. You remember that day when you and I were coming back from a meeting and we saw these two girls on the side of the road, and you had asked, "Are they fighting?" And then I noticed that the other one was pulling the other one's hair, but she was like smiling, and I said, "No, it looks like they're playing." But that's a very unhealthy relationship. And that's what a lot of our teens normally do, and they think it's funny.
Funny at
Um,
first.
yes, and then it also, and that can also be the cause of a lot of this violence, or a lot of the hostility within the relationships. You know, um, I don't think anyone wants to be in a relationship with anyone that likes to pull your hair. Um,
Well, and then I can also see if you're trying to make your boyfriend jealous,
mhm,
or and so said, babe, he's
yeah.
just my friend. He's just my friend. And then it starts to get them not trusting them, and then I've seen it. That's just my friend. Don't worry, say.
Mhm.
And the next thing you know, you're getting. He becomes much more suspicious and suspicious.
Suspicious and hostile and everything.
Yeah,
So
and hostile. So
yeah.
it can
So
start off funny, but
yeah.
it's really important that we teach our teenagers the right type of language to engage
Mhm.
with each
Mhm.
other, so that when we know it can put us into a dangerous situation, we don't always use laughter as the response.
Mhm. Mhm.
Sometimes laughter can just trigger some people.
Yeah. Okay. So um so what about if we so here we're at this slide where we ask, what about if you suspect that a friend is in an unhealthy relationship? How would that friend act? And ask yourself if um, we're constantly um, becoming more isolated. These are ways where we can help victims. Sorry, going back to helping victims, here's how we're going to help victims, able to help victims identify warning signs and ask for help. Because we put there ask for help because a lot of us, a lot of victims, survivors, find it difficult to ask for help. And sometimes it's because they don't know what to ask for, or they don't know who can help them, where they can be supported, who can support them, where their support comes from. So these are some of the things we can look at or ask, or be able to identify whether they're becoming more isolated, not participating in activities he or they formerly enjoy, um, spending an excessive amount of time with the other person, with someone else, displaying physical and emotional signs of abuse, and or when are they happy? I mean, when are they unhappy in a relationship? These are some of the signs that they should notice, try to improve or end the relationship, decide to leave, but still find themselves in that relationship,
Yeah.
and or find themselves staying for all the wrong reasons or in that relationship. Um, when you think you're staying in a relationship for the wrong reasons, such as fear or being alone or guilt, because sometimes fear and guilt can make us stay in a relationship, or sometimes just even being married, you know, oh, I can't leave because, I can't leave this abusive situation because I'm married, because we're married, and, till death do us part. Um, but no. So having counselor or mental health provider to talk to can help you work out challenges in your relationship and find a solution that is healthy for both partners. So as advocates, it's important that we're able to be able to identify these warning signs, and then be able to support our victims, especially like if telling them that when they're unhealthy, when they come to that time when they realize they are unhappy in a relationship, then maybe it's time to do something about it. Maybe it's time to leave, or maybe it's time to seek counseling, or try to improve. When you find yourself trying to improve or end the relationship, then that's a sign. That's a sign of something that should happen. Or and displaying physical and emotional signs of abuse, that's a big sign. That's a big red flag
Mm-hmm.
going up there that something definitely needs to be done. Um, Becoming more isolated. Um,
Yeah.
when you find yourself um, being not being able to spend any time with family or friends for over a year, and you only live like what, 10-15 minutes away, that says something. um, so these are all warning signs that we need to look out for, and there's so many others, but these are just a few that we wanted to mention here, um, for anyone to be able, because we're all advocates, and for any advocate, for anyone to be able to support uh, victims, or any friends, survivors that are going through, or anyone relatives that
Yeah.
might be going through teen dating violence.
I, I think that what you said, the relatives part is really a big thing because we are someone and we're collectivists and we do a lot of family activities and we're a part of a family.
Hmm.
And when you're being abused and they're isolating and you start to see that they're spending less and less time with their family. It's really important to use that cultural aspect as well as I try and identify i- if you're becoming more isolated, it's not just that you're staying in your room, but it really is. Are you spending time with your family anymore? Are you seeing your friends? Who are you surrounding yourself with around this time?
Mm.
If you tend to
Yeah.
hide away from when you're getting abused, that's a good stuff.
Okay. All right, so here we have included here, we tried to include here many of the government agencies, nonprofits that that one can find support with. Um, so we have up there the American Samoa Alliance Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. That's our number. And if you have any questions about teen dating violence or are seeking support, please ask for me when you call. I'm Judy Matoptia. And then also there's the American Samoa Family Planning Program at the LBJ Hospital at Whanga'alu with their number there. And you can ask for Dr. Yaneta Timoteo. Back on Track, a nonprofit organization that's located in the village of Amanave, and that's their number there. And when you call, you can ask for Mona Uli. We have Catholic Social Services with Catholic Church, and they're located at Fatuainga with their number there. So when you call and ask for assistance, you can ask for Director Nancy Tangaloa. There's also the Department of Health, Whanga'alu and Ta'afuna. That's the number at Whanga'alu. And when you call, you can ask for Sitia Soliai. The Department of Human Social Services, that's their number. And when you call, you can ask for Paulia Pelinato. The Department of Public Safety or the Police Department in Whangatoa, that's their number there. When you call, you can ask for Major Po Supapo. We have EPIC. Their offices are at Nuuli and Malaimi. That's their number there. If you call, you can ask for Eucharist Rupena. And we also have one of the other nonprofits, Intersections. They're at Malaimi with their phone number there. And when you call, you can ask for Director Lia Seui. We also have Mana Community Support Services in Mapusanga with their number there. If you want to connect with them, you can ask for Elizabeth Mailo. She's known by Liz. So those are just some of the, we might have missed out on some, but those are some of the ones that you can connect with locally and get some information or get some support or services on teen dating violence or domestic or sexual violence for that matter. So, yeah. All right.
So it's really important to know that all relationships exist on a spectrum from healthy to abusive, with unhealthy relationships somewhere in the middle. So you can use this relationship spectrum and explore the interactive relationship spectrum by rating different scenarios as healthy, unhealthy, or abusive, and then you can help to gauge where your relationship falls or where your victim's relationship falls. And this will help you to let them know, hey, your behavior, your relationship is good, it's healthy. Or definitely say, I'm a little concerned. I feel based on this relationship spectrum and this guide that you're in an unhealthy relationship, and let's talk about that. What does that look like? And then what can we do to get to assistance? You can refer them to the pages, the last page that Judy went over. And then definitely with the last one with abusive, you really want to look at that spectrum and make sure that you can look at the different scenarios and then recognize the warning signs, because this can be an indication. I mean, it can be an indication if your relationship is abusive. And as a victim advocate, you can create a safety plan or connect the victim to talking about confidentiality, discuss their situation, and explore available options.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining going over the relationship spectrum with us. Okay. All right. So we've come to this slide on community advocates. And these are just some of the pointers for us as advocates to strengthen our approach. And so like any other topic we face in advocacy, we start by making sure you have background knowledge on the issues and the resources available, including information on the warning signs, consent, and boundaries, sexual health, how to get help, and so much more. It's important for advocates to be prepared to provide a safe space and accurate information. Learn what other local advocates can do to connect youth with education about healthy relationship dynamics, support the prevention of unplanned teen pregnancies, and successfully advocate for the unique needs of pregnant and parenting youth in care. Most importantly, make sure the youth know that you are there for them, no matter what. And then teens are much more likely to open up to and ask for help from adults who they trust, such as the advocates. And it can be awkward for both sides, for adults and teens to talk about dating and relationships. So share these resources with them and make sure they know you're there to provide a judgment-free listening ear, while at the same time staying respectful of their boundaries. You can also ensure that the youth's caregivers are connected with these resources and support so that they can have helpful conversations with them. Sorry. No matter their past or present, teens can learn healthy relationship skills and experience a healthy, safe, and fulfilling life, especially when they have a caring advocate on their side who can support them. On that note, thank you, advocates, for everything you do. When you can connect victims, family members, and community advocates, this can provide a lifeline to anyone in an abusive relationship. And when an advocate works with victims, it allows for confidentiality, assistance in helping navigate the court system or medical systems to develop safety and wellness plans. And as an advocate, developing a relationship with our local government agencies like DPS, DHSS, to avoid, to aid during the gaps, can be a good way to collaborate. So using tools such as the Duluth model that Jennifer had explained earlier helps advocates teach victims that there is not a cycle of violence. Dating violence happens because the abuser wants power and control. When you realize you're not alone, you realize it's not the victim with the problem, but the abuser. So these are just some of the pointers that we wanted to include there for advocates to strengthen their approach as well as their support and response for victim survivors of teen dating violence or any abuse for that matter. Was there anything you wanted to add on here, Jennifer?
No, I think you did a really good job. I really enjoyed this session.
Okay, so we don't have time for questions and answers, and we're not going to include that, sorry, here, because we have already asked a couple of questions, and we thank everyone for taking part in the questions and sharing with us their answers on how they feel, how they understand, how they believe what teen dating violence, healthy relationships, unhealthy relationships, what they are to you. So thank you for that. On this note, and because we're out of time, we've come to the conclusion, the end of another webinar. We just wanted to announce that we will be hosting the same webinar tomorrow, but in the Samoan language. We're going to be talking about teen dating violence, what every advocate should understand about healthy relationships in the Samoan language tomorrow, same time. So be sure to join us tomorrow for that webinar. For today's webinar, we want to thank everyone for joining us, for being a part of today's webinar, and we hope that this webinar was informative and you were able to gain some knowledge or some information that can support you as an advocate and to strengthen your approach in supporting our victims of teen dating violence. On that note, on behalf of our Executive Director and the Board of Directors of the Alliance, we want to thank everyone. Until next time, soifua.